Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Hungry Shark Tavern. Today we're going to be talking about another spooktacular treat that has very close ties to Halloween, and that is the soul cake. Now, this treat is associated with an old Christian holiday called All Hallow Tide, which is actually a combination of three separate celebrations on 3 days. We have All Hallows Eve on October 31st, All Saints' Day on November 1st, and then finally All Souls' Day on November 2nd. Now, as I said, All Hallows Eve is celebrated on October 31st. There are scholars that assert that the Christian Church absorbed some of the Celtic practices associated with Samhain and co-opted the day of its celebration with the goal of making it easier to convert the Celts into the Christian faith. Now, the observance of All Hallows Eve has a very strong association with the dead, though this varies between regions and denominations of Christianity. Many take this as a day to venerate the departed, singing songs, prayers, tolling church bells. However, some practicing faiths take this as a day to be wary of the deceased. It is traditionally believed that souls continue wandering the earth until All Saints' Day, and All Hallows Eve represents their last chance for the dead to take care of unfinished business, including that against the living. In order to avoid being recognized by any of the souls that might be seeking such vengeance, people would adorn themselves with cloaks and masks, disguising their identity. This practice served as an inspiration for the modern-day trick-or-treaters dressing up in costumes. The second day of All Hallow Tide is All Saints' Day, also known as All Hallows' Day. This was a day of feasts to recognize and pay tribute to saints and martyrs of the Christian faith. Common practice was to lay flowers and light candles on the graves of the deceased to pay tribute. The final day of All Hallow Tide is known as All Souls' Day. All Souls' Day focuses on honoring and praying for the dearly departed of all Christian faiths, especially friends and family in purgatory awaiting entry into heaven. It was thought that vigils and prayers guided them to ease their weight and help them on their journey to paradise. In England, a popular tradition associated with All Souls' Day was an act known as souling, in which bands of children or of poor men would go round to houses of the well-to-do on Souling Day, begging for money, apples, ale, and small cakes. Shakespeare even makes mention of this in his play The Two Gentlemen of Verona. The cakes that I mentioned were known as soul cakes, and they were very much treasured by people that went out souling. And today, we are going to make them again. We're going to get all of our ingredients together. We're going to need 175 grams of unsalted butter at room temperature. We're going to need 175 grams of granulated sugar, 3 egg yolks, 440 grams of all-purpose flour, 5 teaspoons of baking powder, 2 tablespoons of pot de douce, which is a spice mix from the Middle Ages. It contains cinnamon, sugar, mace, ground ginger, and grains of paradise. It's very delicious. We're going to need 100 milliliters of milk, or about 7 tablespoons, give or take. And we're also going to want about a half cup of dried currants, plus a little bit more extra that we're going to use as decoration, and a little bit of turbinado sugar. We're going to start out by preheating our oven to 375 degrees. We're going to line a baking sheet with parchment paper, and in a large bowl we're going to combine the flour, the baking powder, and the pot de douce. We're going to whisk this combination together and we're going to set it aside. Next, we cream together the sugar and the butter until it's light and fluffy. Then we're going to beat in the egg yolks one at a time. Next, we add our flour mix to this, and we mix that well until it's fully combined. Then we're going to add our milk and stir it till it forms a cohesive dough. If more milk is needed, I would add it 1 or 2 tablespoons at a time. We don't want our dough to be overly fluid. Next, we're going to add our half a cup of dried currants to the dough, and we're going to just kind of fold those in, mix to combine. We're going to take our dough, and on a lightly floured surface, we're going to use a rolling pin and roll it out to about 1/3 of an inch thickness. We're going to cut rounds out of this. These are going to form our cakes. I use roughly around a 3-inch biscuit cutter for this. I think this is the perfect size. You can go a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger, but just know that that's going to affect the cooking time as well. Once we have our rounds, we're going to use the dull end of a knife, and we're going to score the shape of a cross onto each of these. With our cut cakes, after we score them, we're going to sprinkle a little bit of turbinado sugar on each of them. We're going to delicately place extra currants to form the shape of the cross as well. Once our cakes are ready, they're going to go into the oven for 15 minutes. Once they're done, they should be nice, light, puffed up, and slightly browned. We're going to leave these to cool on a wire rack, and then feel free to enjoy. Sadly, soul cakes are not a commonplace staple anymore in England or the States, as they've largely been replaced by trick-or-treating candy. However, the practice of souling does continue to this day in Portugal, where it's observed as the holiday Pão de Deus, with a similar cake-like treat canon out. Either way, soul cakes are delicious, with close ties to some of the most celebrated traditions of Halloween. I hope you enjoy, I hope you learned something, and I hope you come back to see more from me here at the Hungry Shark Tavern.